Welcome to a Dub Day edition of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. There he is as the camera switches. The camera just continues to love you on the pod as we're in the podcast studio.
You see my Microsoft Copilot Plus PC sitting there? Looks nice.
It's shining. Shining. You know what else is shining? This amazing win streak that the Broncos were able to extend as they defeated the Houston Texans 18-15 with Will Lutz, fresh off being named AFC Special Teams Player of the Month. He kicks another game-winning field goal to secure the Broncos win. They now improved to 4-0 this season in games where they trailed entering the fourth quarter.
Wow. Maybe they should just do that every week if they're 4-0.
I mean, we love a Hollywood ending. I'm just saying. Well, in this podcast, we're going to talk about that Hollywood ending, some initial reactions, how the defense played, and so much more. So let's kick off this Dub Day episode with some reaction. Woo! Exciting. How you feeling? 24 hours less than that, actually, from this Broncos win.
Yeah, it's Thursday night football week, so we gotta get
we
going.
We gotta hurry up.
There's another game in 3 days.
2-minute drill.
No, I think that this was another game where the Broncos, I think, showed their toughness, their resilience, their grit. It's pretty funny when, like, you've got an 8-point fourth quarter comeback against the number one defense in the league, and I don't even know if it's in, like, the top 3 of the most exhilarating or, like, terrifying games of
this season.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Eagles was much worse. The Giants was much worse.
Oh, the Giants.
And certainly a couple of the losses, but like, yeah, you're just like, okay, they did it again. And, I think that part of that, there's something to that, right?
Yeah.
That like this team now believes that when they're in that situation, they can do it. And I think the fan base is starting to see that like when they're in that situation, they can do it. They have the best fourth quarter point differential in the entire NFL. Bo Nix comes alive in the fourth quarter. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And Sean Payton said that you start to see this identity form around a team, and I wrote about it yesterday. But last year, 1-6 in one-score games. This year so far, 5-2 in one-score games. And it's the most one-score wins by this Broncos team since 2015 through 9 games.
Yeah.
So through 9 games, I mean, to be honest, there's not really that many seasons since 2015 where the Broncos had 5 wins through 9 games at all. Like, it's been a tough stretch, as we know. But to win 5 one-score games in the first 9 weeks, that 2015 team, including the playoffs, I believe went 11-3 in one-score games. And you're talking about 5-2 for the Broncos right now. So you're kind of on that type pace, and it doesn't guarantee anything, but I do think you start to develop this attitude, this moxie, this just kind of mindset where you're like, we're not out of any game. We can win any game. And when it gets close in the fourth quarter and some teams falter right now for whatever reason, and maybe it's just another year of kind of building. Maybe it's Bo Nix in his second year. Maybe it's this defense that's as good as any in the league. Maybe it's the coaching. It's all those things in all likelihood. It puts the Broncos in a position that when other teams start to falter a little bit, they're at their best and you get these wins. And I think it can be a defining element of this team and really drive them to great things this year, because you're going to play, and Bo Nix, I thought, said it well, you're going to play in all these sorts of games when you get to the playoffs, so you got to learn how to win them. Last year, the Broncos did not win them, and Sean Payton has called that their Achilles heel of a year ago. So far, they know how to win them, and that's why they're 7-2.
Garrett Bowles mentioned after the game that this team is very tough to beat in the fourth quarter, especially when everyone is kind of doing their job and being on the same page of things. And the defense continues to be very impressive, and we're going to get to that specifically in a minute. But, like, when you go back and you watch this game and you see just the way that they were able to keep Houston out of the red zone, they were 0-for-3 in the red zone and converted just 3 of 17 third downs. I mean, the defense really didn't let them get anything going. And obviously we know that C.J. Stroud went out early in this game and they were playing against the backup quarterback. But even Cortland Sutton said after the game, he's like, it doesn't matter if it's the backup. Like, he has what it takes to be in the NFL. Like, at that point, you also have to adjust because you don't really know his play as much either. And the way the defense was able to do that helped us out. And, Cortland will never shy away from saying, like, I go up to them all the time and say how grateful I am for them. But when you look at just 24 hours, like, that's 24 hours after this game, when you look at just the overall product that the defense was able to put out, how impressed were you?
Yeah, I mean, very impressed. They needed every bit of it. And I think this kind of ties to the big picture of the Broncos' fourth quarter success. And I mentioned the league-leading fourth quarter point differential and all that. I think there's an element to this Broncos team that is tough, that is physical, that wears teams down. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that in fourth quarters you're playing well. I think there's an element of like when you've got all these pass rushers and these defensive linemen that you're subbing in and out and linebackers, Dre Greenlaw comes back, plays the way he played. When you've got those guys, Hufanga coming up to the line of scrimmage and making all sorts of tackles, I mean, normally it's not a great sign when your safety is tied for, or excuse me, is second place in tackles on the team. But like Hufanga made all those tackles near the line of scrimmage. He was just a complete wrecking ball. But I think there's an element that when you have a defense like that gets better as the game goes on, when you have an offensive line that wears people down and running backs like J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, I don't know that it's like, oh, they just happened to come alive in the fourth quarter. I think it's more that by the time you get to the fourth quarter, you've worn teams down and you're able to start imposing your will.
Yeah, taking advantage of the few mistakes they give you, too.
Exactly. And so I think that there is like, people often say, oh, one-score games, like, is it sustainable? It's kind of a coin flip sometimes. I think just the nature of this Broncos team is that they're built to wear people out in the fourth quarter. And, J.K. Dobbins at the end has that 9-yard run that pushes them closer to field goal range. You see Bo Nix take off.
Huge scramble,
The defense forces punts on the final 6 drives, including 5 3-and-outs. I don't think that, and we'll see how it continues over the rest of the season, but so far this year, we've seen the defense continue to get better in the fourth quarter. We've seen the offense start to impose its will in the fourth quarter. Several of these performances, like Cincinnati, Dallas, where the rushing yards really piled up, it's late in the fourth quarter as the other team starts to wear down and the Broncos get stronger. I think that's part of their identity. So that it's all kind of interconnected, right? But on Sunday, certainly the Broncos needed every stop they got from their defense. C.J. Stroud went out, but even before that, the Broncos make an impressive goal line stand, 3 consecutive stops from the 1-yard line. Dre Greenlaw's in on every single tackle. He shows you, I think he played 27 snaps, 23 snaps, something like that, and he had the third most tackles on the team. He was all over the place, 8 tackles.
It's fun to watch.
And so when he continues to ramp up, it'll be really impressive. Like I said, the 5 3-and-outs in the final 6 drives. I believe the Texans had just 44 yards in the second half after that initial field goal drive. They had just 1 first down over their final 6 possessions. I'm just adding this up in my head, 15, 29, 37, 40, 48 yards over those final 6 drives, 1 first down. And so people will say, oh, well, it was, C.J. Stroud went out. That's what you're supposed to do. There's a difference. Plenty of teams have backup quarterbacks come in and opposing defenses don't do that.
Yeah.
This defense played.
Because they can't adjust, and these adjustments were made very quickly.
Exactly. And I also think that, like, you still got to go do it. And for all the talk about C.J. Stroud wasn't in there, well, Pat Surtain wasn't in there either. They didn't have the reigning defensive player of the year. Sean Payton said after the game, each week, like, you get the injury report and you send in inactives, and normally it's okay. This week, when you're submitting reigning defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain, an all-pro in Marvin Mims, where obviously the Broncos had a muff punt and maybe missed Mims' explosiveness on offense. You have him, you have Adkins, P.J. Locke ruled out late in the week. Sean Payton admitted, like, it was hard to send in the inactive players this week because of all the guys you were missing. And yet, despite not having Surtain, Riley Moss steps up, Jahdae Barron and Chris Abrams-Drain made plays. Nico Collins, he got his a little bit. I believe he had 5 catches. Nico Collins, 7 catches for 75 yards, which is a pretty decent game, but I don't think he had a catch. And Nico Collins, 2 targets, no catches in the second half. So they shut him down there. And if you think about what he did last year, I think he had 191 yards in not last year, but 2 years ago against the Broncos and a touchdown, and really took over that game. And so for them to hold him in check, granted with a backup quarterback, but they didn't.
Yeah.
But they did what they needed to do, and they're able to do it in different ways. Like, they played some coverage, and Vance Joseph talks about, hey, with a younger quarterback or maybe a backup quarterback, you've got to disguise coverages, had a chance at some turnovers, but they found a way. And I saw a stat, our friend Nick Kosmider, the Broncos had the interception in the first half and the muff punt, still find a way to win despite the -2 turnover differential. The first road game the Broncos won with a -2 turnover differential since 2020.
Wow.
And so that speaks to kind of what this took defensively. You hold them out of the end zone. 5 drives got to the 20-yard line. Even though it was only 3 red zone trips, they got to the 20-yard line 5 times.
Yeah.
No touchdowns, 5 field goals only. Again, shut out on the final 6 drives. It was what we've come to expect from this Broncos defense. And Zach Allen in particular, I want to shout him out. He had a spectacular game. He was everywhere. Him, Huff, Greenlaw. I mean, and then the way that Moss, Abrams, Drain, Jade stepped up, it was really impressive. And you're going to face bigger challenges, but I also think that this was a game where the defense on the other side was so good. And that was part of it, is that, like, people say, oh, this wasn't the best offense you'll face. No, probably not. But the opposing defense was so good that if the Broncos gave up anything in the second half, it was going to be a challenge. Or, like, if any of those field goals had been touchdowns, it makes winning this game difficult. So they had to be almost perfect, and they were.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton mentioned it. He was like, I knew coming into this game that this defense was tough. And once you're out there with them and you see how fast they are, how physical, and how they play, like, he's like, it was tough to kind of battle through that. But we were able to do that and find the right times and the right creases to make those plays. You bringing up, obviously, Bo having that huge scramble that really kind of put them in good position. But this defense, they kept the wide receivers in check. They still have not allowed another wide receiver to have over 100 yards since that Eagles game. And the rushing was also really tempered, less than 100 yards rushing for the Texans as well. 4 sacks by the defense, as you mentioned. They held the Texans to 0 TDs without Pat Surtain. So, I mean, this is exactly, as you mentioned, what you expect. But you mentioned it on the preview pod going into this game, where this
sounds smart of me.
where this defensive front needs to put so much pressure up front that you mentioned, that Riley Moss and Chris Abel, maybe you don't need 3 seconds. You only need that 1 second to guard someone because, bam, you're at the quarterback. And that was something they really put on display, and how much that helped the secondary and everything. When you have Huff being able to come to the line and make plays, that shows how confident you are and how quickly you're going to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, they played well together. And Sean Payton said the one area where he thought they really dominated was at the line of scrimmage. Denver's defensive line and edges against Houston's offensive line. And Houston lost a couple more offensive linemen during the game. But it kind of goes back to what I said about wearing teams down. When you win at the line of scrimmage, that's generally how you win football games. And there are other elements and talented playmakers and quarterbacks, but if you can't win at the line of scrimmage, it is hard to
a long Sunday.
Exactly. And so week in and week out, I think you see Denver win at the line of scrimmage. That was certainly the case yesterday. It was the case last week against the Cowboys. It was the case in the fourth quarter against the Giants. And again, you wear teams down. And a really good showing by Denver's defense.
Cortland Sutton after the game also said, this is Bo Nix doing Bo Nix things. So switching over to the offense, the way that Bo Nix has been playing so far in his sophomore year has been very impressive. I feel like that fourth quarter gene, that fourth quarter instincts to not get, discouraged or whatever, despite, as you mentioned, the turnover, things like that. You can't teach that. You either have that or you don't. And the way that he's been able to put that on display over the last few games and not be discouraged in the fourth quarter, especially as a leader and a captain of this team, when the guys look at you as like, how are we going to pull this out? They don't question that anymore. Now it's like, when are we going to pull this out versus how? And this team has been very impressive. And I think the rookies once again stepped up in this game. Pat Bryant having a good couple plays. And then obviously RJ Harvey just continuing to catch CDs from Bo Nix.
Yeah. Well, RJ Harvey now has the most receiving touchdowns by a rookie running back in franchise history. He's tied, I believe, for the second most touchdowns in the fourth quarter of any player in the NFL, skill position player. But you're right about Bo Nix, and I don't know what it is, but like for some reason or another,
you can't teach it. It's just there.
You can't. And Cortland Sutton said he's a gamer. He's got the it factor. He just knows how to make plays in those moments. And I mean, look what it's done for the Broncos. And by the time you're listening to this, up on denverbroncos.com, we have a look at Bo Nix in the fourth quarter, and he's tied for the most passing touchdowns in the NFL in the fourth quarter with 7, with Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers. And then total touchdowns, he has 9, which is he stands alone. Nobody has more. His passer rating is up 25 points in the fourth quarter compared to the first 3 quarters. The Broncos are averaging this year nearly as many points in the fourth quarter as they are across the rest of the first 3 quarters. Yeah. And I don't know if it's, you're finding You're kind of finding answers throughout the game, and then in the fourth quarter you strike. If it is, you're wearing teams down, or if it's just, if he has, like Courtland Sutton said, and I think this is part of it, that it factor where in the biggest moments he plays his best football. And I think that we talked about it way early in the year, maybe after the loss to the Chargers, right, where I said, hey, at some point, to win in this league and to win in the playoffs with however much time to go in the fourth quarter, you've got to be able to put together those big drives. And we need to see it from Bo Nix. And man, have we seen it over the last 4 or 5 weeks. He has done it again and again. Some quarterbacks play great the first 3 quarters, and then they kind of shrink in that moment.
Yeah.
And Bo Nix has shown the ability to play great across 4 quarters, but he also is at his best, and his game gets to another level in the fourth quarter. And I think that when that starts happening, then it kind of it like starts to roll, right? Like you're going downhill, and Bo Nix starts to believe that, hey, we get to the fourth quarter, I can do this. His teammates believe, and Courtland Sutton said this, as long as we have Bo, we're okay, and that he can start making plays. And I think there's an element to Bo's game as well where he can throw the passes you need to make. The 2-point conversion throw to Troy Franklin, terrific throw. Unbelievable.
Troy being clutch, too, in those 2-point conversions as well. Yeah, being the go-to guy.
But an unbelievable throw. But then the added element of being able to take off with your legs, that also just stresses a defense because you can't play – if you play man coverage, you got to worry about Bo doing that. And so there's an element to his game where it's like he's going to find a way no matter what. And as the Broncos head down the second half of the season and you play teams like Kansas City and you're looking to fight for that division title, as you're getting to the playoffs and you're trying to make a run to a championship, you're going to need that version of Bo Nix. And so to see him do that now and find ways to win ugly, as he said, that teaches you how to do it later. Highly impressed with what Bo's been able to do. And the one thing about this offense is that the Broncos obviously have 7 points going into the fourth quarter, and everyone's like, oh, why does it? We talked about before the game. Everybody all week is like, this is going to be a tough game, a gritty game. That's the number one defense. They fly around. And then you get to the game, and that's what happens. And then everyone's like, why is this happening? Like, there are games.
Where are the points?
Yeah, like, that's what this game was always in. Bo Nix and Sean Payton.
What it was always going to be about.
They both said it after the game. We knew it was going to be like this.
Yeah.
And then it played out like that. And they knew they had to be a little bit better. But what did we say on the preview? This is not going to be a game where you score 40 points. This is going to be a game where when you have opportunities, you have to take advantage. Yep. And there was a throw the play before the touchdown to Courtland Sutton where Bo had an opportunity to hit Evan Ingram, and he missed him. And it felt like, man, that was one of those opportunities you got to hit. And then Bo, to his credit, who has like the shortest memory, it seems like, because he can just wipe that away quickly. Yeah. He goes right back to Courtland Sutton and takes advantage. Yeah. If RJ Harvey open, you hit him. You have the chance to take off or to, let's go back to, you have a chance to hit that 2-point conversion. Yeah. Make those plays. So it wasn't that like you're going to make every play, but when there were chances, it felt like, and we said this on the previous show, it felt like you needed to take advantage of them. They did that. Yeah, it was a gritty game. It was an ugly game at times. It was a defensive battle. We knew all that. And so then when it happens, it's like, why are we freaking out about that? This is exactly what we knew was going to happen. They're not freaking out on the sideline, but Twitter just becomes like this panic chamber because
mayhem.
You're playing in this defensive battle. And listen, if you can score 11 fourth quarter points against those guys, you can do it against anybody in the league because that's as good of a unit as you're going to face all year. The Broncos find a way to score 18 points and get a win. Man, hat tip to Bo Nix for the way he showed up.
I feel like there's only a certain number of teams in the NFL that you don't want to give them the ball back with like under a minute left, right? Because you're scared of what they're going to do. And the Broncos are starting to become that kind of team where it's like you don't want to give them any time on the clock. I mean, the Broncos had 33 seconds left in that drive against the Giants, and they were able to win the game. So, and it was similar to that when you watch this game and they're driving down the field and time's expiring. The awareness that Bo Nix has in clock management, the way that he commands the huddle in terms of like, this is what we have to do, this is where we have to get in order to put Will Lutz in the best position to win this game. They play so complementary to each other. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's been making this team so successful. I mean, they're pushing on this win streak. Obviously improving to 7-2. If you look at the AFC West picture, they're now tied with the Colts. They're now tied with the Patriots at 7-2, I believe. And then you have the Raiders losing to Jacksonville, the Chiefs losing to Buffalo, and then the Chargers to get a win over Tennessee. As you kind of push, we've talked about this from our first spot of the season of like this AFC West race is not going to get easy. Like despite the fact of the Raiders not being exactly top competitors right now, but you have the Chiefs that are trying to surge back in. You have the Chargers trying to hold tight right behind them, and then you have the Broncos right on top of the AFC West. When you have these kind of games that you can pull out, as you mentioned, if you can do this against the Texans defense, that is very impressive. We've talked about this even with Dallas's offense. Their record doesn't indicate how good of a team that this actually is. And so for the Broncos to go on the road and win this game after a very tough stretch of travel and home games and all kind of things, I think has really impressed me of what they're able to do, especially as they kind of push forward in the AFC West.
Yeah, it's hard to – you don't want to understate what yesterday meant.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Chiefs lose. I know the Chargers won, but they were kind of locked in a tough battle with Tennessee.
Yeah.
You're now at you still got 8 games to go, but every week that you keep winning, it starts to look more and more likely and more possible that this team can win the division for the first time since 2015. And not just the division, but based on you're tied for the best record in the NFL through 9 weeks, and your 2 losses are at the buzzer. You didn't trail in the fourth quarter in either of them. And so this is each week I think that we learn something about this team. And I said it before the Cowboys game that if they can go out and win a game against a high-powered offense like this, I'll start to believe more, not start to believe, but I'll believe more and more in what this defense can do.
Yeah.
And boom, what do? They hold them in check. Mm-hmm. You then play the Texans on the road. It's an early start time. You're missing Pat Surtain. You're missing Marvin Mims. You're missing Nate Atkins, who I know nationally is not a name that people are going to know, but is a big part of what this offense does.
Right.
And you go out and you still find a way to win a game against a team that we mentioned this before. Their point differential is a point differential that's playoff worthy, and they have the best defense or the top ranked defense in the NFL. And so, and I think we talked about this too, that it was going to be after the game that if you lost, it was like, oh, you lost, you're not for real. If you won, it was going to be like, okay, you beat a team that's now 3-5. But
the goalpost always gets moved back.
Exactly. But when you get rid of the narrative, I think you see a Texans team that had a high point differential that, it was playing really good defense and had won 3 of its last 4, and you're able to find a way to win. And now you learn something about what this offense can do, what it can do in the fourth quarter. We've seen them learn how to win 1-score games. And so we just know more about this team than we did 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. And I think what we know is that it's a team that if you keep winning, you've got a chance and a good chance to win this division. And obviously yesterday felt to me like it wasn't a must win. Like the season wasn't going to end if you fell short in Houston, especially in a close game. And we talked about that. Mm-hmm. But I think had you lost and then Kansas City loses to Buffalo, it would have been like, man, there was a real chance to put some distance between us and the Chiefs, right? Mm-hmm. And especially with the Chargers winning, the Broncos and Chargers would be tied right now. Mm-hmm. The Chargers would have the head-to-head, so Denver would be in the wild card spot at the 6th seed, I believe. And you would have been like, okay, the season's not over. We're still in the midst of the division race. We're still tied for first. But, man, that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah. And
instead, and this is kind of the theme of the season for me, is like last year, and even we can just talk about last year. There were times where it was like, it's not the end of the world to lose in Kansas City at a blocked field goal, right? But it does feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. This year, after those 2 heartbreaking losses early in the year, the Broncos haven't had any of that. They haven't, like we talked about the Jets game. Man, that would have felt like a huge missed opportunity late in the year when you're trying to count wins and stay in the division race. The Eagles game, if they convert that Hail Mary at the end, it's like, man, we had them.
Yeah.
And the Broncos keep finding ways to turn those losses that would be tough to swallow into wins. And so now, like you said, you're 2 games up on the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. The Chargers, are one game. You keep a 1-game lead on the Chargers, and they've got kind of a tough. They're against the Steelers this coming week on Sunday Night Football, who just ran past the Colts, forced 6 turnovers.
Yeah.
They're at Jacksonville, and they still got games against the Eagles, the Chiefs, and obviously the last one against the Broncos. So you're now looking at a situation, I think, where you've done what you've needed to do so far. You got to keep winning, like play the Raiders this week. Got to find a way to win that one and keep pace. You can't drop these. Like the Broncos have a 90% chance of making the playoffs now, and you've basically put yourself in terrific position to make the postseason. But now you're like, we want more, right? We want the division, and so you got to keep winning. But man, if you told me before the season the Broncos would be 7-2, have a 2-game lead over the Chiefs, you would have taken that all day. And so credit to the Broncos for putting themselves in this position and earning the right to continue to play games that matter moving forward.
The mentality definitely is something that impresses me about this team, because even after the win on Sunday, they talked to Will Lutz, and Will Lutz said, like, look, we've been in that position of blocked field goals, missed field goals. Like, we know that feeling of losing in that way, and like we don't want to do that again. And so we are trying to put ourselves in the best position to be successful. Nick Bonito also added on to that, saying like we got the taste of like that gut punch defeat, right? And that was obviously early on in the season. He was like, but that really changed how we don't want to feel that again. And the best way to do that is, to your point, as they said, make plays when you can, take advantage, strike when those opportunities present themselves, especially when you're going against a top offense, you're going against a top defense. Like, it's not always going to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be, but there are those little glimpses of opportunities that you do have to be perfect on in order to shift the game and shift the momentum of what you can do. And I think that they did that against the Texans. And I think for this team too, as a defense, they pride themselves in wanting to become better. And obviously the Texans have a top defense. The Broncos believe they have the best defense. And so when you compare that together, it's like we had to hold our own too. I mean, Texans did their job. They forced turnovers. They put their team in position to win. Bo Nix just was able to make more plays. And as you mentioned, have a very short memory to say like, okay, interception, that's behind me. What's the next play? Or, okay, like there's nothing open. Wait, I'm a mobile dual threat quarterback. Let me rush off for 25 yards. I mean, the way that this team is able to kind of battle back and find different ways to attack teams, that resiliency is part of the culture that's been built into this team. As what Bowles has talked about, as what Sutton has talked about, and as two guys that have been with this organization for so many years, I know for them, it's like this is the turning point we've been waiting for, and it's something that Bo Nix had talked about of like, we're just waiting to get over that hump. And I feel like for the Broncos, they're over that hump, and now they're trying to sustain the way they've been playing to now go into Thursday Night Football on a short week and get a win over the Raiders.
Yeah, and we'll obviously talk more about that game as we move forward, but I think that there's kind of my initial thoughts are it's a division opponent, so it's going to be tough at least early. And you
coming off of a loss.
You got to, they just had a heartbreaker in overtime against the Jaguars, played an extra 10 minutes, which I'm sure is not helpful as they get ready for Thursday Night Football, but you got to be ready to go. And you cannot, and we talked about this last week, can't look past the Raiders to a game against the Chiefs that everybody is going to be circling externally of like,
that's the game.
That's the game.
That's the new game.
That's the new game. But you've got to, before you get to that, you've got to take care of business against the Raiders. I think Geno threw 4 touchdowns this past game, so he obviously had one of his more productive games of the season. Pulling that up here to see.
Pull it up, pull it up.
Geno, 4 touchdowns, 117.9 rating, which I'm sure must be one of his better games of the season. You've just got to be prepared because the Raiders are now 2-6. They would like nothing more. Max Crosby would like nothing more than to come in and end the Broncos' winning streak and
twofold winning streak and the home winning streak.
Exactly, and so you got to be ready to go. As we're recording this, don't know what injuries look like, but if you can get Marvin Mims back, potentially that would be a huge help just from an offense and special teams standpoint. We don't know who else might be questionable. We haven't seen anything. But this is just a game where it feels like if the Broncos are focused and play their best brand of football, it's a game that you want to be able to win, especially at home. and get even. And the Broncos have played one division game through 9 weeks. They now have 5 of their last 8 are division games. You've got to be better in the division. They took a step last year, but you got to find a way to do that this year if you want to truly end this streak and win the AFC West. And it starts by taking care of business at home against the Raiders. And it's going to be emotional early. It's going to be close early. Might be, the Raiders are going to come fired up again, wanting to kind of play spoiler. We've talked each week about like prove something against the Cowboys, prove something against the Texans. Again, this week to me, it's like prove that you can rise above letting a division opponent play spoiler and just take care of business at home. And it'll require a fast start. Obviously, you don't want to let a team hang around because that makes them more dangerous. But if you can play your brand of football, hopefully the Broncos are able to get a win. Yeah,
looking at very quickly what the Raiders did against the Jaguars, it was punt, turnover on downs, touchdown, an interception, but then it was a field goal, touchdown, and a relation, obviously a touchdown. They ended up in a batted down pass where they couldn't complete on that 2-point conversion. But you said it. I mean, this is a game that you're going to have a short turnaround, but this is why the method to the madness is so amazing to see what head coach Sean Payne is able to do. Because going back to London of like, don't say the L word. It's like, that's how you get this team to only focus on what's in front of you, not worry about the fact that it's a short week, not worry about the emotional wins that you just, get over. I mean, how emotional this one was compared to the other ones, maybe, as you mentioned, maybe not as emotional, but still, like, you get this high of like, oh my gosh, we were able to do it. But not letting that overtake your team and them just being like, yeah, we won. We did what we're supposed to do. Okay, now let's flush this. Let's go on the short week because we have a game to play on Thursday. All that training, for lack of a better phrase, that Sean Payne has been able to teach this team to do and have that mentality of just like, okay, you win, celebrate. Okay, that's great. Let's move on. Yes, that was emotional, crazy, historic, da-da-da. Okay, let's internalize it. Let's move on. That's not to say like he doesn't want the guys to enjoy it, but it's like this is what championship teams do. They win, period. There's no like win, ugly win. They win. And when you win, you can't just be so elated, like, oh my God, we won. You're going to win again. That's the mentality. And I feel like that, this culture is starting to build in Denver of like, let's not get too hyped up on these wins because guess what? The plan is to win again. And that's what the Broncos are going to try to do on Thursday Night Football. And I know you're excited because it'll be throwback week once again. And the Broncos will roll out there in their nice little throwbacks, which they also played versus the Raiders last year.
Yeah, they 3-0 in the throwback. So hopefully keep this going. And again, we'll talk all about the game and kind of the challenges the Raiders pose. But this to me feels like it's about the Broncos. Get ready to go, be ready to play, and find a way to get to 8-2.
Well, we look forward to prime time because that'll be amazing to watch. Again, Thursday Night Football against the Raiders is about to go down, and we'll get you ready with a new episode of Altitude Advantage, so stay tuned for that. But we just had to recap this amazing 18-15 win that the Broncos had over the Houston Texans to improve to 7-2. They now look to protect that win streak as well as the home win streak at Empower Field at Mile High. So that'll do it for this edition of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our mathematician, our stat man, our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. Remember, Broncos Country, for all the latest from the Texans game and leading up to Thursday Night Football, make sure you visit DenverBroncos.com.